Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Zortman one more time. I'm going to talk to you today about question number one. So if you were with us on the Discord, you got to do some practice on this. If you want to go to Discord and look at the practice on it, please do. We're going to go ahead and go over question number one today. Once again, I'm here at the AP College Board website. Question number one, you're going to have 25 minutes to do. It's going to be 55% of your overall score. It's going to have concept application questions. It says question one assesses students' ability to explain behavior and apply theories and perspectives in authentic contexts. And we'll take a look at what that means here in a second. And then for 2020, question one will be similar in structure to a traditional concept and application, and we'll have 8 tasks. Okay, so this is an update. Actually, since I've been here last, they've added this. So it's going to have 8 tasks for you to do. Normally they have 7. Question 2 will be 6 tasks for you to do. I just see that over here. So they're not really going to cut down on the tasks for you, but you are going to be able to use your notes. So you should have a pretty good handle on the definitions of these terms before you go into it, or be able to quickly look them up and refresh yourself. You're not going to have a lot of time though, so you can't go in blind and hope to learn a whole concept in the 25 minutes that you get. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the way that we answer question one real quick, and then we'll get to some examples. So question one here, we've been doing it all year as word of the days. What you're going to do is you're going to first define the term. So it's going to say, how does this apply to this situation? And first you're going to say, this theory or this concept is this. Then you're going to explain why that's important. So this is the E part. So it's important because, and this sentence right here, you're tying into your apply sentence. Sometimes you just have the D and the A if there's no explanation needed, but I would try and squeeze in there the explain why it's important, and then apply, how does it apply to the situation. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do a couple of examples. We're going to go ahead and go back to the AP Psychology, apcentral.collegeboard.org, courses, AP Psychology. This is open for any of you guys, so if you want to take a look at it at any time, you can go back and look at all of these questions. So practice free response questions. Okay, random number between 1 and 19. 4. Let's look at 2004, see what question we got here. All right, so free response questions, free response questions. Now remember, there's 2 types of questions. One is the study-based question, research and methods, which is this one. And then there is the application type question, which is this one. So in this one, it's question 2. It'll be question 1 for you guys. Let's go ahead and move this question over to docs just to see what we can see here. No, it doesn't like that. Okay. Let's save it. Open it. Now we'll try again. Doesn't like that. Okay. So we'll just do it the old-fashioned way. All right. So time is an important variable in many psychological concepts. Describe a specific example that clearly demonstrates an understanding of each of the following concepts and how it relates or is affected by time. So you're getting lists of concepts, and you are telling me how they are affected by time or how it relates to time. So, first concept we're going to look at is critical period. All right, so how we would start this, we're going to start all of these with the term that you're doing. This way there's no confusion, there's no way that the reader can say, oh, well, I don't know if he's talking about this concept or that concept. If you just put in critical period is. Now, whenever you look this up, do not do this. Copy, paste. You might be able to. There is no lockdown on the, you're not going to have to get a lockdown browser, which means that you probably will be able to have multiple tabs open. I would recommend against it. If you're going to look stuff up online, first I would go to your notes, but if you're going to look stuff up online, I would look it up on a different source. That way there's no possible call of you cheating or copying and pasting or things like that. But a period during someone's development in which a particular skill or characteristic is believed to be most readily acquired. So, critical period is the time when someone can learn something the easiest. All right, so critical period is the time when somebody can learn something the easiest. So explain, what am I talking about here? Well, critical period, the first thing that comes to my mind is language. Is one of the good things is you'll have spell check too. All right, so critical period is a time when someone can learn something the easiest. Language acquisition is one of the best examples of critical period. When children are young, they seem to acquire languages much easier. Okay, now we're going to tie it back to the question. I think this would get you the point. I think if you just had these three sentences, that would get you the point. But always err on the side of caution. So make sure that you're saying, okay, time is a factor because Time is a factor because age is a factor in critical period, and if you miss out, it may be harder to learn that skill. All right. So, number one. All right, let's jump over and look at the second idea, fluid intelligence. Now, this was a word of the day for us, so you should have it in your notes. I know you guys don't have your notes, though. What I would do is I would go on to Quizlet, and there are quite a few lists of top 200 terms for AP Psychology. I would download those and print them out, and that can stand in for your notes because I know they're still locked at the school. So, once again, start with the word. Fluid intelligence is so fluid intelligence is the ability to adapt and see things from many different angles. All right, so now we're going to start tying it in. Why is it important? Oh, it's not too important. Let's use our $5 words here. Now, if you didn't have a $5 word, that's fine. You could just use a couple of words to get that same message across. All right, so you guys can see how horrible my spelling actually is. Worst kept secret of the school, Mr. Zortman can't spell. All right, so um, fluid intelligence is much more prevalent in younger people. As they age, they have a tendency to go towards crystalline intelligence. So how does that apply to our situation? Time is a factor because okay, so fluid intelligence is the ability to adapt and see things from many different angles. Fluid intelligence is much more prevalent in younger people as they age. They have a tendency to go towards crystalline intelligence. Time is a factor because when you uh, are in life young or a teenager, you are more likely to use fluid intelligence, and when you are older, you are more likely uh, to use crystalline. All right. So how does it relate to time, right? Let's go ahead and jump over to the next one. Group polarization. So once again, group polarization is, right? All right. So we haven't really got into this as much. It's in the later chapters that aren't going to be on the test, but we'll go ahead and do it just to do it. So group polarization is the tendency to take more extreme views the more you're around people of similar views. So all right, so individuals with extreme group within an extreme group like the KKK will become more racist over time when exposed to similar people. So time is a factor because all right, time is a factor because the more time you spend in the group, the more polarized you become. Actually, you might want to quantify that. Just do a little definition there of what polarized is one more time, just so they don't ding you for using the term as the definition. All right. So, James Lange theory of emotion. This is one of the later things that we went over. All right. Let's go ahead and just for your edification, we will go ahead and go to Quizlet. Search AP psychology. All right. So as you see here, we've got 612 terms, 566 terms. So you do have some large pools that you can draw from. Let's go ahead and get into the biggest one and see what it has. And this is also good for you to check yourself on as far as games and things like that. All right. So these are all available here. You just have to sign in to get them. All right. So let's go ahead and look up real quick. James Lange theory of emotion. So emotion is equivalent to the range of physiological arousal caused by external events. The two scientists suggest that someone feels an emotion, that for someone to feel an emotion, he or she must first experience a bodily response, such as increase in respiration, increase in heart rate, or sweaty hands. All right, so they are saying that emotions, let's go ahead and simplify it. James Lange theory of emotion is okay, so you have to have a bodily response in order to have an emotion. All right, so in this regard, it's a lot like classical conditioning, right? You have um, the action, and then you have the reaction being the emotion in this case. Okay, time is a factor. Always err on the side of clarifying. So we're going to use an example. All right. So time is a factor because reaction or emotion happens after the action or stimulus. Somebody bangs on my window in the middle of the night. My body acts first. So I'm going to get startled. My heart rate's going to go up. My perspiration's going to get going. And then I am going to feel a certain kind of way about that, whether it's scared or aggressive or whatever that particular reaction is. So that's the James Lange theory of emotion and how it relates to time. Make sure you don't just tell us what the theory is, because you got to relate it back to time. All right, so presentation of the conditioned stimulus and the unconditioned stimulus in classical conditioning. We just answered that. All right, so the unconditioned stimulus is going to become the conditioned stimulus, right? So All right. So classical conditioning states the unconditioned stimulus will become a conditioned stimulus that is paired in the right order. Now, if, you got to be careful about this. And often enough. So we're going to explain that. No, I did that wrong. Close to the uh, okay, so the unconditioned stimulus, the bell was presented before and close uh, to the conditioned stimulus of the bell. Oh, I see what I did wrong here. Okay, so this is actually not the conditioned stimulus, it's the unconditioned response. Of the food. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to go ahead and not edit that out, just so you know that I make mistakes too. All right, so the classical conditioning states that unconditioned stimulus will become a conditioned stimulus if it's paired in the right order and often enough. In Pavlov's dog experiment, the unconditioned stimulus, the bell, was presented before and close to the unconditioned response, the food. So the dog salivated when they got near the food. The bell came right before and close to the food, and so the because they were paired together enough times, the unconditioned stimulus was turned into a conditioned stimulus over time. So how does time relate, right? So we got to tie it back to the question. All right, so we're getting there. Got a couple more. Refractory period for neural firing. All right, so refractory period for neural firing is the time after an action potential is fired. Remember, when a neuron is going to send a message, it either fires or doesn't fire. If it fires, it's an action potential that's going to send a charge down the axon, which is going to tell it to release the neurotransmitters. So there's a time right after it fires that it can't fire again. We're talking split seconds here, but there is a refractory period where the neuron needs to reset. So all right, so now we're gonna relate it to time, right? All right, so time is a factor because during this time, the neuron cannot fire again, regardless of how much it is stimulated. So the neuron fires. Um, it takes a split second to reset so that it can fire again. So even if it does get a lot of input from nearby neurons during the refractory period, it's not going to fire again until it resets. And that's what the refractory period is about. Almost there, guys. Two more. Sound localization. Okay, so they're going to have some of these that have a stretch to them. You have to actually think it all the way through. This is the difference between a 4 and a 5. So if you don't get these, don't beat yourself up too much, but try them because you might surprise yourself. So sound localization is the ability to tell where a sound is coming from. So you hear something over here, you turn your head, right? You hear something over here, you turn your head. How are you able to do that? So all right. So 2 ears enable us to locate where a sound is coming from because the sound hits one ear quicker than the other one. Now, when we think about speeds, right? Universal speeds, we've got the speed of light, which our brain could not detect the difference of. But the speed of sound, our brain can do that. Now, you're not going to think about it. You're not going to say, this ear got the information before that ear. But that's where the unconscious processing comes in. So your unconscious mind is going to process that for you and say, oh, it hit this ear a split second sooner than it hit this ear, which means that it's over this way. All right, so time is a factor. All right, so time is a factor because our brain can process information faster than the speed of sound. So it can tell which ear was stimulated first. So your brain knows which ear got the information first. Volume is also a factor there, but we're not going to confuse the issue in that way. So the brain is fast enough that it can calculate the speed of sound and unconsciously process that for you. The brain is not fast enough. It's not faster than the speed of light, therefore it can't do that with your eyes. So sound localization, this was the stretcher. You had to really stretch to get that. All right, and spontaneous recovery. Let's not even do learn, let's do conditioned. Okay, so we're going to get way into our Pavlov here. So spontaneous recovery is when a previously conditioned stimulus is rediscovered after extinction. All right, so let's go ahead and go back around. Mm-hmm. All right, so first the response needs to be conditioned by pairing an unconditional stimulus with an unconditioned response, the bell and the food, right? Then the conditioning needs to be lost because it was not reinforced, extinction. So extinction is you've trained something through classical conditioning and now it is extinct because you've gone a couple of months and you haven't paired the bell with the food, you've just rung the bell at random. And so the dog does no longer respond that way. Uh, all right, so spontaneous recovery happens when without retraining, the response happens again after extinction. So let's say that we just put the bell aside for 2 or 3 months and then we ring the bell, right? If the dog started to drool again, um, that would be a spontaneous recovery. All right, so time's a factor because time is a factor because um, all right, because first the learning has to happen for there to be a chance of spontaneous recovery. So they're not going to pick it up out of nowhere. Now, let's say that this dog got out of Pavlov's lab, which would be great for the dog because most of them didn't, um, and went to a nice family, right? And the family had no idea this experiment was going on. And one day they had a bell that was set at the same frequency, and they rang the bell, and the dog started to salivate and hop around like it was going to get food. All right. So if Pavlov hadn't originally trained that into them, they would have no way of knowing that the bell meant food, and therefore spontaneous recovery doesn't have a chance to happen. All right, guys. So we've got some examples here. I'm going to stop on here so you can pause, get a screenshot. And then I'm going to stop down here so you can pause, get a screenshot. All right, so that is what we're going over today. This is how to crush question number 1. I will do another one next week, and we will keep moving forward like this, giving you examples. But the best thing that you guys can do, honestly, is practice. So you can get to this website. Anybody can by yourself. Look up these questions. It also has scoring guidelines here and what other students have wrote right here. So you can take a look at those. So that is the best way to do this. Now, next week on Discord, we'll be doing some more practice. If you're coming on Discord, be ready to do the practice. And we will try and help each other out. Really, at this point, you have all the information that I can give you for the test. So now it's a matter of practice and studying and getting ready for it so that you can get it all knocked out in the timeline. So uh, that is where we're at, and I'm going to go ahead and sign off. You guys have a great day, and I will make another one of these next week.